So HBO just released their first season of the new Game of Thrones series, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which was a huge success both critically and viewership-wise. One of the episodes was even rated the best TV episode of all time, which I thought was a bit overkill, but it's still a great show nonetheless. This video is going to kind of serve as both a review of the show and a video on Game of Thrones in general. For a brief recap for people who are not familiar, author George R.R. Martin released a series of fantasy books called A Song of Ice and Fire, which is about a massive fight in Westeros for the throne by all these different houses who all have centuries of beef with each other, plus other elements like dragons and ice zombies, blah 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 blah. It was adapted into a show called Game of Thrones by HBO, which became like the most popular thing ever at the time. If you don't believe me, just look how well popular Pedro Pascal is now. That's how GOT is doing. However, when the show started, George R.R. Martin hadn't finished the last 2 books yet, and the showrunners kind of expected him to at least have somewhat of a finished product in a few years. But around season 6 of the show, the books still weren't finished, and to this day, they are still not finished. I think he's probably just going to release them after he dies because he doesn't want to deal with the fan backlash, but it's whatever. So the show basically had to find a way to finish this massive story without any real kind of content to go off of, and things kind of went crazy from there. You probably already know the gist. Then, after a brief hiatus, they released a prequel series on House Targaryen called House of the Dragon, which was actually pretty good. Then they released a new spin-off on a smaller, more whimsical story that George wrote called The Hedge Knife, and here we are. This show kind of reminds me of the Game of Thrones version of The Mandalorian. It's a breath of fresh air in an already established franchise with a new tone and different kind of story. In a story where there's very few quote-unquote good guys or bad guys, it's very refreshing to see characters who are just infallibly good and honorable people. So Duncan the Tall is honestly up there with some of the best Game of Thrones characters. It's also nice just to see the perspective of Westeros from a regular person's perspective, not just like from a royal house. The show also has some great moments, most notably the Trial of the Seven, which everyone was talking about. It was very well done and had a very nice tone. I told David that I honestly wouldn't have minded if the show was just like PG-13, because I liked how it wasn't trying to be like too gory or edgy or anything. I think after the show, plus House of the Dragon, we might be starting to climb back to the level Game of Thrones was at before season 8. I don't know if them doing 12 seasons of the show will work, but we'll see how things go. But that does beg the question, where does the franchise go from here? As of right now, House of the Dragon Season 3 comes out this summer, and people were complaining about Season 2 even though I thought it was fine. Like, the pacing was a bit off, but there's still a lot of good moments like Blood and Cheese and Rook's Nest, which got a lot of people talking. Then there's that Jon Snow and Arya Stark spinoff that apparently is happening. Hot take, but I think Jon Snow is just okay. His role in the story is like very, very interesting. He's probably the most interesting character, but him as a character is just okay. It's just that interesting things happen to him. This is the first sequel that they're doing after season 8, and I'm not sure how it will go. I think building off that ending is just going to be very difficult, but we'll have to see. In a way, I kind of feel like Star Wars and Game of Thrones are in a very similar position. Both of them have a core iconic story, and a lot of the other stories branching off of it, all taking place across multiple points in time, and both of them had really big setbacks in 2019 related to a big finale. I think Star Wars has been more successful moving on with like The Mandalorian and Ahsoka stuff, but that's just me. Okay, the last thing I wanted to do on here was quickly rewrite Season 8. That's something I've been wanting to do a while, so I'll have to go back a little bit. So here's how I would do things. Season 1 and 4 stay exactly the same, they're basically perfect. Season 5 and 6 are merged together, with the beginning being when Jon Snow dies and the end being where he's resurrected, with the Battle of the Bastards and the Hold the Door scene finishing off the season. And the last scene is Daenerys coming to Westeros. Then Season 6 would be all the characters reuniting and beginning to fight the White Walkers, and it ends with the Jon parents reveal. This is kind of like Season 7, but like extended a bit. This is also when Daenerys begins hinting at turning to the dark side instead of it being crammed into 2 episodes. Then Season 7 is the war against the White Walkers, and it ends with a well-shot version of the Battle of Winterfell. Maybe reveal that Bran was the Night King and he dies killing him, because that was a theory that was online. Finally, Season 8 is the last battle for the throne, where Cersei dies midway at the Battle of King's Landing, and Dany eventually just goes crazy, and by the end, Jon has to kill her. Then, instead of him ending up like Jaime and as the Kingslayer and being banished, the cycle doesn't repeat, and he becomes king as a rightful heir to the Targaryen throne. Sansa gets to rule the North as an independent kingdom with Arya. Tyrion remains hand to the king, Jaime goes on to live with Brienne, and then Dany, Cersei, and Bran are the big deaths, alongside Theon as well, I forgot to mention that. That's all I really have to say for now. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is an easy 10 out of 10. Next video will be about Invincible. Then when I finish Attack on Titan, I'll post a review of that. And Ryan is still working on his David Fincher video. If you want more video ideas, leave them in the comments. Thanks, guys.